everyone. So as you all know, I love to take cruises for vacations. There is a lot of things that you can do on a cruise that you can't do at other places, like if you go to a theme park or if you go, let's say, camping or to any other place. For some reason, to me, cruises are just the ideal thing to do when you're going on a family cruise. But even with all that said, there are a few things that need to be taken into consideration when you are going to sail on a cruise. You want to make sure you get the best ship for your family's needs, because if not, nobody's going to have any fun, and you want to make sure that everybody has the best time. So the first thing that you need to consider is the age of your kids. When looking at the various amenities that some of these ships have on board, you want to check for restrictions as far as the ages of kids, because some cruise ships have things like water parks or splash pads. One of them, like the one I went on Royal Caribbean's Mariner, has an age restriction for their sky pad, the bungee jumping virtual reality thing that they have. So you just want to check the ages of your kids to make sure that all these fun things that are on board, that they can participate in them. Because if not, you're gonna be kind of miserable dealing with their incessant whining about why they can't get on the fun things, why they're too young, or why they're, just find out if you're gonna go on a certain ship. Find out what age limitations there are for some of the pools or the water slides, and make sure that they have things that are age appropriate for your child. Another consideration is the camps that the ships have on board. Many of them do have age limitations. Usually it's 3 years old and potty trained to be able to participate in the camp. Otherwise, they will have to spend time at babysitting services, and that they do charge a small fee. Another thing to look into is which ports of calls the ships are going to be going to. The cruise companies now have their own private island, which is within walking distance from the ship. And these private islands have a lot of fun things for families to do. So you want to be sure that the ship you're going to sail on is going to stop at one of these islands. Now, I'm using the Caribbean as an example, because that's usually what I sail. Since I'm based out of South Florida, it's the easiest for me to just jump on a ship, go to the Caribbean, have a week or less, however much time I want, on vacation, and then come back home. If I wanted to go somewhere to like Alaska, say, it'd be a lot harder for me because I would need to fly out to the West Coast, jump on a ship there and go to Alaska. So I use the Caribbean a lot in my examples because it's a lot more accessible to me and my family. Now, as far as these ports of calls, you definitely want to check to see if the ships stop at ports of call that has family-friendly places for the kids and is within walking distance. Otherwise, you're going to end up having to pack a lot of other things to be able to visit some nice stuff. Things like car seats, bigger strollers maybe, things for a day out, walking around. Staterooms only have a limited amount of space. So if you have to take a really big stroller on board a ship, it's going to be a kind of a pain to be able to maneuver that around. So when the kids are young, personally, I prefer to do ports of calls where it's within walking distance, where I don't have to take things like their car seats, where I can only take maybe an umbrella stroller and a carrier for the baby, things like that, because I hate having to lug around all this equipment for the babies. Now, if you visit my blog at sillybabiesblog.com, I actually do offer a free printable packing list for your cruise. So if you'd like to go ahead and download that, you can visit my blog at sillybabiesblog.com and download that, and it will have everything you need for sailing with little ones. Some of my favorite ports that are family friendly are San Juan, Puerto Rico, because the port in San Juan is very close to a lot of different places. For example, there are 2 forts within walking distance of the port, and one is El Castillo de San Cristobal and the Castillo San Felipe del Moro. Both of those are really neat forts where they have cannons on display. You get to walk all through these underground tunnels and things like that the kids, my son loved it. He was about 4 years old when he did a tour of the fort, and it was like the coolest experience for him. So yeah, definitely San Juan, Puerto Rico is one of the ones to visit. The other place I like to go to is Coco Cay. That's Royal Caribbean's private island, because it is basically it's its own island, and they have all kinds of fun things for kids to do. You're within walking distance of the beach. You just get off and you walk a little bit to get to the beach, and everything is right there within walking distance. Another really nice port of call is Labadee, Haiti. This is not exactly a private island, but it's like a little private peninsula that Royal Caribbean owns. And again, it's within walking distance of the ship, so you can get off at Labadee, Haiti, and the beach is right there. They have like a teeny little market where you can shop for things, for handmade items in Haiti, and there's just a lot of really neat things. They have a zip line that goes over the water. It's a really long zip line, and it's really cool. There's a water park. There's a roller coaster. This is actually on the side of a mountain, so there are some hiking trails on the side there. There's a lot that you can do that's family friendly, and the amount of activity ranges for the ages. So it's really from anything from little kids. If you want to just relax on the beach, you can. If you want to have a bit of an adventure, you can go on the zip line, or you can go on the roller coaster. They have water slides. They have like an on the water like flotation, I don't know, like an American Ninja Warrior kind of thing that you can go on as well, and it's a really nice little island. So those are some of the ports of calls that I would suggest to you for as a family. Just take into consideration. Now, personally, my absolute favorite port of call is in St. Thomas. I love St. Thomas. St. Thomas Virgin Islands is like the place where I would like to go and retire to. This is my favorite island of all time. But the places that I like to visit on St. Thomas are not as easily accessible via boat. It would take some kind of transportation in order to get there. So therefore, as you know, with the kids, I actually have not been able to take them where I like to go on St. Thomas because of that reason. I don't want to end up having to take their car seats with me and overpack for that trip. A third consideration is your budget. Some of the cheaper cruises do not have as much on board as some of the more expensive cruises. But if you take into consideration how much is involved in some of the more expensive cruise liners, there's so much to do on board that you don't even have to think about taking an excursion. And excursions can get pretty pricey. If you take that into consideration, a ship that may cost you, let's say, $700 per person might seem a little expensive, whereas another ship for the same amount for the same port of calls and the same stateroom type and the same everything might be maybe $400 per person. But they don't have things like the water slides, or they won't have, like Royal Caribbean has a carousel on the back of it. Norwegian has the go-karting. They have all this stuff on board that you might not even need to go out on excursion if you don't want to. or go off the ship at all if you don't want to. Sometimes you may not want to. I sometimes don't. There's some ports of call, like for example in Nassau. I'm not really a fond of Nassau unless I'm going to go to Atlantis and go to the water park in Atlantis. Other than that, I'm not really very fond of getting off at Nassau, so I'll just stay on the ship during that port of call, and I'll partake in the activities or on the ship itself, like all the water slides, all the things like that. Because at that time, when you're at a port of call, the majority of the people are getting off the ship. So being able to get on the water slides, if you want to get on water slides, that's the time to do it. When you're at a port of call and everybody's off the ship, you go to the water slides. There's no lines, there's no waiting. You can lounge in the pool or have fun relaxing in the hot tub, and you don't have to share it with a bunch of strangers. It is, to me, that's what I like to do for a lot of the ports. Like another one that I really am not very fond of is Falmouth, Jamaica. Jamaica itself is gorgeous. I absolutely love Jamaica, but the problem is that you need to be able to travel to get up to a lot of the prettier areas in Jamaica, and with two kids that are 2 and 5, that's just not gonna happen. I'm sorry, but it's not. I'd rather just stay on the ship, hit the water slides, hit the hot tub, let them play in camp, or I'll spend time with them on the pools. In my opinion, for certain ports, it's better just to stay on the ship. So that's something to take into consideration, is your budget, because like I said, some of these ships will have a lot more on board than some of the cheaper ships, but when you weigh out the pros and cons of each, it makes financial sense to pay a little bit more for a ship that has a lot more, as opposed to having to pay for a cheap ship that's cheaper but there's nothing on board, so you end up having to get into these excursions, and you end up having to pack a lot more to get off the ship to have fun. Those are a few things to look at as well. A fourth consideration is sleeping arrangements. Most ships, the regular balcony cabins or inside cabins, will sleep up to 4 people. So if you have a large family that's more than 4 people, you're gonna need to look into if you're gonna get adjoining cabins, or maybe a suite that will sleep more than 4, that they'll sleep 6 sometimes. So that will also depend on that's something else that you need to take into consideration, is the sleeping arrangements, especially when compared to your budget. Because once you start getting into suites, it gets more expensive, but you'll be able to keep the whole family together, as opposed to putting family into 2 separate cabins with a possible adjoining room. Now, even though the room is gonna be adjoining, adults have to stay in that room with the kids. So as a husband and wife might end up getting split so that the whole family can be in adjoining cabins. Now, the 5th consideration, and it's something I've already spoken about a little bit, is the onboard amenities in the ship. You need to look at these onboard amenities because, like I said earlier, a lot of these have age limitations. You need to make sure that your children are old enough to partake in these amenities. Things like water slides, like there's a few slides on Royal Caribbean I know that has a 5-year-old. They need to be 5 years old and a certain weight limitation in order for them to ride. The splash pads that are on board, also they have certain age limitations and restrictions, like the splash pads for the babies. The babies, that's only for babies that are not potty trained. And then they have another section of water slides for kids that are potty trained. But you also have to make sure that that's actually on board, because this is something that's not offered on a lot of ships. There's only, I think, about 3 ships, maybe 4, that offer something like that. So you need to look into that as well. So just to wrap this up real quick, I just wanted to talk about the cruise companies that I think are the most family friendly, and those are Royal Caribbean, Norwegian Cruise Lines, and Disney Cruise Lines. Now, these cruise lines, in my opinion, are the most family friendly because they have the most amenities on board that are basically for all ages. From little ones, they'll have playrooms for the little ones, for those that are under 3 years old, that they can go in and play with toys. They'll have water slides or water parks for preschoolers. They have the splash pads and things like that for the kids that are not potty trained. Of course, you need to look into that one because that's only available on just a few ships. So you need to make sure that the ship you're looking into sailing has that little pool for non-potty trained babies. They'll have the water parks. They'll have bowling on board, ice skating, bumper cars, go-karting, the rock climbing, zip lines. They have all kinds of stuff on board. Laser tag, that is for families, that's for people of all ages to enjoy, whereas some other cruise lines just don't offer things that are for families. For example, in my opinion, Celebrity, they're a great cruise line, but that's more for people that are looking to relax and enjoy themselves. It's not really family oriented, it's not family geared. They do have things like the babysitting services and the camp, but that's about it. They don't have water parks for the kids. They don't have an arcade. It's not really they don't have as many amenities for families and for children than some of the other cruise companies. So that's a place to start. Go ahead and start looking if you're looking to sail as a family in the near future. Start looking into those companies: Royal Caribbean, Norwegian, Disney. So that's it. This Friday I'm going to do a vlog on taking a road trip with kids, and where I offer some tips on how to be able to manage your sanity when it comes to taking a road trip with kids. So look out for that on Friday. If you like my content, then please go ahead and hit the big red subscribe button below, as well as click the bell so you get notified whenever new content is up. And thank you guys. Until next time. Bye.